What's up, guys? Welcome to Nimble Minds Talks of Self and Spirituality, where we talk about different philosophical perspectives as well as spiritual practices. Getting right into this video, this topic is going to be about unpopular opinions, and that will then transition into not going with the crowd and so on, and topics like that. So, before we get into that, there is a question I was asking myself, and that question was, well, you know, this channel is called, Nimble Minds Talks of Self and Spirituality, right? So how does that apply to the topics? How does that even apply to things we're talking about? Well, here is the answer. When it comes to the different topics, and I like to focus on temptation, specifically lust to be exact, but there are other temptations and there are other things, right, that can affect you. So the reason that even applies to having a nimble mind is because first, you're going to have to be flexible and you're going to have to be nimble in order to better adjust to not giving into the temptations and not giving into the lust and the desires that are natural to being a person and just living a life. So you're gonna have to be nimble, you're gonna have to be flexible. So that's what that means. And then when it comes to the mind part, the philosophical part, these are philosophies and these are ways to live life, because it will change your actions and it will change the things that you do when you actually begin to listen and you actually begin to adjust your own habits in order to live in accordance, okay? And the next thing is going to go ahead and be the spiritual part, okay? What does this have to do with spirituality at all? Okay, well, this bounces perfectly off the last thing I just said. When you adjust the actions that you do to live in accordance and things like that, it will naturally affect your spirit. It will naturally affect your soul. That is just the nature of adjusting your life and adjusting your habits in the ways that are pleasing to your soul, if that is what you choose, if that's what you desire. Because once again, it's not like a forceful thing, but that is what it has to do with the spiritual aspect as well. So we're going to go over that again. You have to be nimble. You have to be flexible when it comes to dealing with temptation, when it comes to battling urges. You're going to have to be mindful in the philosophies that, start to arise and the different changes that you start to approach your life with. And then spiritually, it's just going to naturally have that domino effect when you are, starting to actually live a certain way, okay? That's just how it goes, for the good and bad. So with that out of the way, let's finally get into this video. I'm already at like 3 minutes, and now that, I'm finally getting to the topic, right? So look, the topic of this video is going to be unpopular opinions. So in this world, right, in society, we can see that a lot of things will go on around you, okay? There will be a lot of gossip. That's just one of the things. But a lot of motivations, right? Of a desire to maybe gain, or a desire to not even just gain, but to do this or do that, right? Just to say it frankly, to do this or do that, whatever it is. And sometimes the right decision is the unpopular decision. Sometimes the right decision is the decision most people couldn't believe. Sometimes the right decision is a decision that a lot of people will look and be like, there's just no way that that could possibly be, some of the things that I should probably try to do, because it just doesn't make any sense. In the world we live in right now, once again, I like to focus on temptation, especially lust, but there's other things, greed, gluttony, lying, deceit, all types of things, but I like to focus on lust. So when it comes to things like that, they're just like, dude, in the world we live in, you're trying to tell me I have this satellite in my hand and I should not be looking at that corn on the cob? I should not be engaging in all these arguments in the comments? I should not be out here, giving my attention, because where attention goes, energy flows, right? So I should not be out here giving my attention to a lot of these just negative things that are out there in the world. And truth be told, trials and tribulations will find you, and that could also be negativity, right? So it's not that bad things never happen. It's not that you will not have trials and tribulations, because if you're on a path of actually trying to, not give in to temptations, right, and live a life in some type of accordance, right, then at the end of the day, you're gonna have your own trials and tribulations just with that. Okay, I said tribes, but you're gonna have your own trials and tribulations just with that, okay? Naturally, because it's not something that's easy to do. It's not something that you just wake up one day and, you know what? I'm not gonna do this drug. You know what? I'm not gonna gossip today. You know what? I am gonna have positive self-talk. You know what? I'm not gonna give into these different desires, right, that really don't bring anything fruitful to you. They really don't have anything that's fulfilling for you, okay? So it's really not easy to do these things, and a lot of people would rather just, put the headphones on, and a lot of people would rather just block out the noise, and a lot of people would just rather not listen. And when I say that, don't take it so literal, okay? I love my music, okay? Don't get it. I love music, okay? So don't get it, twisted, but not so literal, but metaphorically, people would rather continue to put on the headphones of the gossip. People would rather continue put on the headphones of the lying. People would rather continue to put on the headphones of the lust in order to cover up the fact that they're subtracting from their plus. That's something I always said before, but people would rather put on the headphones of lust. People would rather put on the headphones of the lying. People would rather put on the headphones of deceit. People would even put on the headphones of anger so they don't have to face themselves. So they don't have to look in the mirror and be like, you know what, it is on me. You know what, there are things I can do that are within my control. Okay, not saying you can control everything, because you can't. That's the nature of things. But there are things you can control, and people do have more power than they believe, and that they even know of. But once again, in the circumstances that we're in, it's just naturally going to be pushed that you don't have the control to not give in to these desires. You do not have the control to say no to not even just watching porn, right? Because that's like my thing, but really just, it could be sleeping around. It could be not just fornication, but like adultery and things like that. And let me get into that, okay? Because it's not just sleeping with someone who's married, because if you ask me, a piece of paper will never replace a feeling. A piece of paper will never replace true desire, okay? A piece of paper is just that, a piece of paper. So I'm talking about when there's people that are together, when there's people that are giving their time of love and intimacy and the trust and all that to each other, and then you purposely want to go in there and try to disrupt something, that's on you, okay? And obviously the person, is both people involved. It wasn't just like you slept with this person and they, there's two people, right? But that's what I'm talking about, okay? So for people out there that are, somehow get some sort of gratification doing that, I urge you, okay, I just urge you to maybe not do that. At the end of the day, I do not control you, and I have no desire to control you, but I do believe you will see some positive changes when you actually take some time to go like, okay, you know what? There are things that I know please, my ego. There are things that I know please these aspects of myself that are actually not so positive. And I need to make a conscious effort to say that, you know what? Let me abstain from this. You know what? Let me take a break from this. You know what? Let me cut back on these things, okay? Let me, do these things a little bit less so I can really make an effort to improve myself and live in that accordance, okay? And when you do these things, once again, I will touch on both sides. And the first side is that it's not for everybody, and that's just the truth, okay? I wouldn't say it's a hard truth. It's just like a truth, but I guess for some people it's a hard truth, but it's not for everybody, okay? Not everybody can do it, and not even that not everybody can do it as if it's some kind of, oh my gosh, look at me. No. It's not just that not everybody can do it. Not everybody wants to do it, and people need to accept that not everybody will want to do the things to live in accordance, and they have to accept that that's okay. okay? Because at the end of the day, you can once again tell people everything they need to know. You can tell people this is the way. You could tell people, hey, I got a couple of things that may assist you. I have a couple of things that could and they'll still be like, you know what, I choose deceit. You know what, I choose lying. You know what, I choose spying. You know what, I choose lust. You know what, I choose subtracting from my plus, because that's just who they are, okay? That is just what they have given into for so long, that it has consumed them, that it has become them. And now, you know, that's just where they're at, okay? That is just where they're at, okay? Now, they still can put in effort and put in work. It's just going to take a lot more time depending on the situation. But for people who are in a, decent spot, in a good spot, I urge you to, once again, hey, just keep going, okay? Stay true to the to living in accordance, or the path, however you want to say it. Stay true to that, okay? Because there is benefits, okay? And remember what your reason behind it is, okay? And now I'm going to go to that other side, right? Start touching on the other side of, there are people out there, once again, and shout out to the people out there who are actually putting in effort, okay? Putting in work to not do and give into the temptations, because it's not easy at the end of the day, okay? It's really not easy. Shout out to the people who maybe have been overcome by greed, maybe have been overcome by lust, and they actually got a grip on it, and now it has no more control over them. Now they have the control over it. Matter of fact, it ain't even about control anymore, because now they're in full control of their spirit. Now they're in full control of their soul. Now they are having these conversations, okay? And they're able to get closer now to the spirit. They're able to get closer now to the soul. They're able to get closer to God now, because they actually put in the work, and they're not just deluding themselves into thinking that, hey, it's supposed to be easy. Hey, I can just watch corn, right? Because, we, come up with these, reproduce these sperm cells, right? And make these sperm cells at a high rate, right? That I can just watch corn, and I can just, sleep around with all these women, and I can just do all these things, and it's not going to have an effect on me, okay? Because I can just do that. Look, once again, go do that. Go do that. I am not the person that's about to, stop you from doing anything. Go do that, and then you go see what happens, okay? But I would urge you that, no, maybe not. Maybe that is not the best decision. Maybe that is not, advisable. I wouldn't say to do that. So, once again, shout out to the people who are actually living in accordance and doing those things. Now, that is the unpopular opinion, is that sometimes the right thing is the unpopular opinion, okay? And that can cause you to what? Stray from the crowd. That can cause you to what? Not be with that bandwagon mentality, okay? That's just how it is. And if you even want to relate it to like something like internet, right? How you have bandwidth, and that's the amount of people that, are able to be on a certain network with like this traffic. Maybe you're going to be the only one now on a certain network. Maybe it's only going to be a few of y'all on a certain network now, because, you know what I'm saying? I'm not talking about literally, like maybe, but it's only going to be a few of y'all now on this network, because not everybody would rather be with the bandwagon mentality. Everybody is like, nah, I'm not with the unpopular stuff. I'm with the popular. I'm not with the, things that may be a little more difficult, but are the, right things to do. I'm with the things that are easy to do, easy to give into, and they're popular, dude. Like, sleeping around is popular, bro. Like, I have all the women, that's popular, bro. I have all these DMs, that's popular, bro. Like, I can call this person, that's popular, bro. Like, I can do this, that's popular, bro. I'm wearing this, that's popular, bro. There's gonna be people that are like that, and that's okay. At the end of the day, that's okay, because who am I to judge? Who are you to judge them? Exactly. So all you can do is, once you realize, once you understand, once you've gotten to a certain point, all you can really do is make that decision for yourself. You can't try to, take people with you. You can't try to drag people with you. You can't try to, you know what I'm saying? Because it's just not going to work. It's just not going to work, okay? You can say things and plant the seeds, which is great. That's a great thing, to plant the seeds. But at the end of the day, it's going to be their own spirit. And it's going to be their soul within them that is going to have to be awakened and talk to them and let them know, hey, it's about time for a change, man. It's about time to maybe we do something a little different. So that is some of the things that an unpopular opinion can lead to. That is some of the things that not going with the crowd on a lot of things can lead to, okay? And on the other end of that, there are some things, right, that you're going to have to turn popular yourself. You're going to have to turn the unpopular into the popular when it comes to things like temptation. You're going to have to turn the unpopular into the popular when it comes to dealing with the desires. That's just how it is. So, for example, another unpopular opinion, I was just talking about lust, right? Greed, you know what I'm saying? And greed takes all shapes, sizes, and forms. You can be greedy with food, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Put the plate down. But you could also be greedy with money, like just having a lot of money, you know, because it gets to a point where I'm sure, and I'm not in this position, but I'm sure it does get to a point where you have so much money that you don't have to worry about it. So when you're on that pursuit forever, it becomes that rat race. That's when it becomes the hamster wheel of this endless chase of what? And that's because people that are chasing these desires and people that are chasing the temptations are actually chasing nothing at the end of the day, because it's not fulfilling at all. There's nothing to really gain there, you know, besides if you do have a family, now you can support your family. Yes, that is a positive thing. That's a great thing, okay? If you have this family, now you have resources. Now you can put them where, you know, they need to be. And now you can really make sure they're okay, right? Yes, but it does get to a point where people will just chase that and keep going, and it's just not fulfilling. At least for me, that's all I'm saying. At least for me, it's not something that's super fulfilling at the end of the day, because once again, everybody has their day, right? And you can't take that with you, even though people will try. You cannot take that with you. There are other things that are going to be more important. There are other things that are actually going to matter, and I don't think a piece of paper, you know what I'm saying, with value that we assign to it is going to be that thing. But you know, to each their own, right? To each their own. You can't force anyone, you know, you really can't. But once again, that's one of the things that you may have to, you know, turn the unpopular to the popular. Another thing, right? Because we were just talking about less greed and that part of the money. Saving money. That might be an unpopular opinion, surprisingly. For me, that's surprising, but that might be an unpopular opinion, right? It's not just the temptations of, you know, lust and greed like that, but spending money. Let's talk about it. So it may come a time where, like, you know what, hey, I'm in a situation where I can actually save a little bit here, save a little bit there. So why not do that? Believe it or not, there's some people who do not want to hear that. There are some people who are like, save money, but you gotta, you know, spend money to make money and, you know, stuff like that. And I'm not saying that's not true, but you can, how you gonna spend money you don't have, though? It gets to a point where you gotta start asking yourself these questions, and it's like, okay, you're gonna spend this money that you don't have to get what exactly? Okay. And that's coming from me. That's coming from a person who, look, I order food often, okay? I literally just had some pizza I ordered, so look, you know what I'm saying? But I still try to save where I can, though, okay? So I still recognize that even as I may come to you, whoever's watching or who's ever listening, with this information, there are even areas and aspects that I need to work on and that I do work on, so I can still understand that. But you just have to recognize, okay? And that could be an unpopular opinion, saving money. Another unpopular opinion, right? Another unpopular opinion is the gossip. How many people love to gossip out there? Gossip is so popular. There's a time that I was gossiping when I was younger, and I didn't even think about it. I was just gossiping. So imagine if people stopped gossiping. Imagine how much time people would not have if, or how much more time people would have if they just didn't gossip all the time, right? They just didn't gossip about this person, or they just gossip about that person. They would have a lot more time to maybe gossip about themselves. Look, I'm all about gossiping, but what are we gossiping about, right? Let's gossip about something positive. Let's gossip about this. I'll gossip all day if we're talking about things that are actually going to improve circumstances and situation, then I'm with the gossip. Like, I'll gossip about that. I'll gossip about this. I gossip about everything if that's what we're going to talk about. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gossiping right now. What am I gossiping about? I'm gossiping about that lust. Because, hey, you heard about what that lust try to do? I'm gossiping about that greed. Hey, you heard about what that greed try to do? I'm gossiping about that, that gluttony. Hey, you heard about what that gluttony try to do? I'm gossiping all day. Hey, I'm gossiping about the spending money. Hey, what that spending money do, you feel me? Especially when you ain't got it like that. I could gossip all day. So it's like, what are we gossiping about? Okay, but a lot of times people are gossiping about things that are just not beneficial. People are gossiping about, did you see this person get like beat up or something? Like, I don't know, I'm just making stuff up, but this person get beat up, and it's like, okay, and then they want to talk about it forever, and it's like, all right, I get it. And then it's like they're gossiping about this person. You heard what happened to this person? And it's like, okay, so do we actually plan on helping this person, or are we just about to sit here and talk about this person's situation the whole time? Because that's just not gonna work. Because at the end of the day, if this person actually needs help, are we helping them, or are we just going to sit here and act like we're all high and mighty when we're not? And, you know what I'm saying? And try to get an ego boost out this. So, I'm with the gossip. I really am. But most of the time, the gossip is not positive. The gossip is usually at the expense of someone else and not at the, benefit of them. So, once again, that could be an unpopular opinion right there, okay? What's another unpopular opinion? Well, de-discipline, and that goes into the lust, but that de-discipline could be a very unpopular opinion, okay? It's unpopular to be like, you know what I'm saying, don't sleep around. And it's very unpopular to say that when people have options and people have all the opportunities to do that, because, we do live in a society where it's like, take advantage of every opportunity, you know what I'm saying? Because opportunities, and yes, that's true, but that is on more of the survival type of mindset where it's like, anytime you throw a dog a bone type energy, you got to take it. And that's not necessarily the case. Okay. So that's why it is important, okay, to be able to set goals for yourself, to be able to get to a point where you realize, okay, there's a level of self-control I do need to have. There's a level of self-wherewithal. There's a level of self-awareness I need to have to understand that although I do not have control over everything that happens in my life, right, there are certain areas of my life where I have control over, okay? And a lot of those areas are the temptations, okay? And once you are able to abstain yourself, once you are able to hold yourself back from those temptations, from those desires, okay, you will start to feed your spirit. You will start to feed your soul. And once you start to do that, you will know. Once again, once you hold back from the desires, the temptations, you will start to feed your spirit. You will start to feed your soul, and you will know when you do these things, okay? Because it's not an accident, when you feed that spirit. It's not an accident when you feed that soul, okay? It's not an accident when you feel that presence. It's not an accident when you start to actually cultivate yourself, okay? A lot of people say we are created in God's image. I agree with that. So when you cultivate the energy inside you, when you cultivate these things, not just from the lust, but abstaining from the temptations, abstaining from the desires, then who are you feeding? That's all I'm asking you. I don't need to answer that because I believe that whoever's watching, whoever listening, I believe you truly do know the answer, okay? And it's only a matter of time before you have to listen, okay? Before you start to listen, okay? So at the end of the day, we are creating God's image. I know that. I believe that. So when you start to abstain, right, from these temptations, from the desires, especially some of the strongest ones, which is the sexual thing, which is the sexual urges, then who do you think you're feeding? Who do you think you're giving your attention to now? Who do you think has their eye on you? Who do you think is starting to listen to you when you do these things, okay? So look, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, because it's not going to be easy, okay? There will be hiccups on the road. But as you continue to drive and as you continue to grow and as you continue to keep going, you will start to better recognize what those hiccups are, and you will be able to better course correct, better adjust to what you need to do, okay? In order to feed your spirit and in order to feed your soul, okay? Because at the end of the day, we have to be honest with ourselves. You just have to be honest with yourselves. If you want to make any type of progress, you just have to humble yourself if that's really what you want to do and you want to understand anything. And you have to understand that women look good, okay? You got to understand that that's just how it is, okay? There ain't nothing wrong with acknowledging, okay, you know what? She looked good. She did her thing today. She smelled good. Her hair looked nice. You know what I'm saying? She put it on today. Face looked, hair done, nails done, everything did. Whatever it is, you know, her face looked nice. Her body looked nice. Look, I'm not saying that that is not the reality, okay? Because the reality is women be looking good, okay? Like, that's why it's so difficult, okay, to not, you know, engage in these activities, okay? It's because these activities are attractive if we're just being honest, okay? These activities are attractive, but that's why it is such a benefit for those who are actually able to say no. That's why it's a benefit for those who are able to know that, okay, these temptations are very strong. These urges are very strong. But as long as I understand that I do have this control, as long as I understand that I can keep going and I can say no, then you have all the power that you need. You have all the resources. You have all the energy that you need. Okay. Spirit will feed you, soul will fill you. Okay. And you will be able to cultivate that energy. Okay. So a few more things I do want to say before I wrap up this video. There may be a edit in here, depending if I'm able to finish this before this thing cuts out. But one of the things I do want to touch on as well is be mindful of your reality. And when I say your reality, I simply mean your situation. For me, I am in a blessed situation to the point where I am able to put more time into focusing on to being able to abstain from the temptations out there or the desires out there. But for example, if you're a person out there who works, has a job, and you're doing these things to sustain yourself, be realistic. Be like, okay, at the same time, the desires, right, they could be even more tempting now because now I'm more in the public. Now I'm interacting with these people on a daily basis. So I'm going to see more beautiful women, okay? I'm going to see more of these women out here. I'm going to see more of these ladies out here that looking good, smelling good, looking good, and they got the voluptuous figure to them. And you're just going to have to accept that. But at the end of the day, it could also be a better circumstance. Don't forget to look at both sides. It could also be a better circumstance because, look, now that you're out there and you're actually working, now you got something else to focus on, though, okay? Now you got something else to focus on. So you might see a woman out there, you might see a girl looking good, and you know everything is the way it should be. But now you're like, hold on, I have a goal. There's stuff I gotta focus on, right? I gotta keep this roof over my head, or I gotta, you know what I'm saying, I gotta eat this meal, or you know what I'm saying, hey, I gotta abstain from the temptations. That should be a big enough thing right there. But you know what I'm saying, just use that as something else you could focus on, okay? And think about the both sides. Maybe if you're a person out there that, hey, you have more time to yourself, understand there's both sides to it. When you have more time to yourself, yeah, you could put time into really abstaining and really connecting with the soul and the spirit. But understand, them urges is going to be even stronger now because now you got your own thoughts. You're alone now, and now you may be getting close to the spirit, close to the soul. But now, if that can get closer to you, there's a lot of other things that can get closer to you. That's just the nature of the thing. So you're going to have even more self-control. You're going to have even more self-awareness to be like, I ain't giving into those thoughts. And not even just that, I won't give into these actions, okay? Because the thoughts lead to the words, which lead to the actions, okay? And sometimes just skip the whole word part. Sometimes the thoughts just lead to the actions. So you just need to be careful and understand that. Don't commit to those thoughts, okay? As faithful as stuff as I preach being faithful. I want people to get into relationships. I want people to be married. I want people to be happy. But at the end of the day, if there's anything you're going to cheat on, if there's anything you're not going to be faithful to, don't be faithful to the temptations. Don't be faithful to the thoughts that are going to intrude on your mind and intrude on your spirit and intrude on your soul and try to get you to do acts that are not in accordance to what you should be doing, okay? If you're going to be unfaithful to anything, be unfaithful to the thoughts that are going to intrude on your spirit and on your soul and try to get you to do things that are not in accordance with what you should be doing, okay? So that's one of the things I definitely wanted to touch on there. Be aware of your situation, okay? Now, we're coming to the end of this video, so I just have to, once again, for the people out there, because it's not for everybody, for the people out there that are really sticking to the path and are really trying to live into accordance. It's not going to be easy, but the people that are out there that are actually sticking to it, the people that are out there that are actually putting in the work, okay, to abstain from the lust, abstain from the temptation, the desires, shout out to you, okay? And I'm here to tell you, keep going, okay? Because there is a benefit. It gets better. It gets easier to manage, okay? But it is a process. It is a process, okay? So for the people out there that are really staying true to the path, for the people out there that are really in this thing, then keep going, okay? Anyway, that's the video. I hope you took something from this in any shape, form, or fashion that you can apply to your life and hopefully make it just a little bit better. That's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.